Assalamu alaikum, welcome all. On behalf of Muslim Association of Virginia, I would like to welcome each and every one of you to this house of light. May we all find our light. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We start this important and beautiful evening with the glorious name of God Almighty, the one who has showered His grace, favors, and blessings upon us, the one who has enwrapped and enveloped all of us in His unlimited and infinite mercy. We ask God for His help in all our affairs. May we all become truthful in our speech, sincere in our actions. As one of our heroes, the champ Muhammad Ali said, service to others is the rent you pay for living in this world. May we all be used in service of God's creation. And in our mission to serve God's creation, we ask God Almighty to grant us patience of Noah, the forbearance of Abraham, the strength of Moses, the love of Jesus, and the mercy of Muhammad. Salutations be upon them all. Amen.
Okay, may I invite our candidates to join us on stage, please. And I'm going to be turning it over to our moderators for this evening. And we have a great moderating panel. Mr. Shuja Nawaz is a political and strategic analyst. He is a distinguished fellow, South Asia Center at the Atlantic Council in Washington, D.C., the author of Cross Swords, Pakistan, Its Army, and the Wars Within, a lot of other books that are also, I'm going to skip a little bit, otherwise we'd be here for a long time. Great and distinguished, moderator. Our other moderator for this evening is Ayan Sheikh, a Somali-American journalist who's lived in the D.C. area for the past 8 years. She is currently the local Morning Edition news producer and editor for the D.C. region's NPR station called WAMU. Some of you may know that station. Before coming to WAMU, Ayan was the senior producer for the Arabic language news network Al Arabiya. She covered U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East and the 4 years of the Trump presidency. She has also worked as a digital storyteller and working for a nonprofit organization called Women for Women International. Our third moderator for the evening is Tuqa Nusayrat. She is the Director of Strategy, Operations, and Finance for Middle East Programs at the Atlantic Council. Her research focuses on political reform, civil society, and human rights in the MENA region. She's a lifelong resident of Fairfax County, where she has been involved in the Muslim American community through civic engagement projects, currently serves on the board of Dar al-Hijra Islamic Center, and holds an MS in Foreign Service from Georgetown University and BA in Government from George Mason University. Now I'm going to turn it over to our main moderator, Mr. Shuja Nawaz, and I will say that we did not have an impact on the questions that were given to the moderator. You as an audience have an opportunity to send in your questions via the links on either side of the wall, but the moderators will be directing and Mr. Nawaz will give kind of the ground rules for everybody, and I'll jump in at the end of this. I hope that we can all have a very civil and civic debate tonight, and we really want to thank our candidates and their campaigns for agreeing to do this. So we get a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Seth, and thank you to everyone. And the first rule of the evening, if the audience can agree with us, is that there will be no cheering throughout this debate till the end. Till the end, when SAC will give you a signal, and then you can cheer to your heart's content. I hope that's acceptable. It will allow us to have a debate and a discussion with your participation. So thank you on behalf of my panel colleagues, Ayan Sheikh and Tukan Nusayr. Welcome Congresswoman Wexton and candidate Cao. Welcome to the members of the audience. Just a few words again of warning and a request that there's no signage or placards to be displayed during the debate in the audience. We again ask everyone to remain silent, respectful and civil during the duration of the debate, and you will be told at the end when you can clap. The organizer, Saif Rahman, will give you that signal. For the candidates, we have already shared the rules with you, but it's worth repeating for the audience's sake that each candidate will be allowed 3 minutes of introductory remarks at the start of the debate, and then they will be allowed closing remarks of 2 minutes each at the end of the debate. When we ask a question, they will have 1 minute 45 seconds to answer, and the other candidate will have a rebuttal of 45 seconds. So there's an opportunity for give and take. I hope we can keep it going. And with the questions from the internet, from the audience, the live audience, we will try and keep everything going and on time. Thank you. And so now let's proceed. My first question is to both of you, and it's a two-part question. Do you believe that the 2020 election was...
Wait, I thought we were doing a introductory first? Are we doing introductory first, sir?
I am so sorry.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I jumped quickly to the question. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we will go to your opening statements, and then I'll come to my first question. So, first, if I may request candidate Cao, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everybody. Xin chào cô chú mấy chị. Cảm ơn quý vị đã làm cho Hùng đứng đây bữa nay để đại diện cho mỗi người Mỹ gốc Việt. Mesdames et messieurs, merci bien pour venir ici ce soir. Je suis très fier de vous représenter ce soir. Bom dia, buenas tardes, buonasera. This is the diversity of our district, right? The diversity of the And what I've heard going around the district is they're so excited to finally have a representative that represents them, that understands where they come from. Not because of the color of my skin, but because I fought and served and became an American. And I'm so proud of that title, to be called an American. And, you know, for those that don't know me, my name's Hung Cao. I'm a father of 5 beautiful children. My beautiful wife and I have been married for 23 years. And we are so proud to be part of Virginia's 10th District. I came here as a refugee in 1975. and this wonderful country brought us in. Then I moved to Africa, where I lived in Niger, Mali, Senegal, Oporta, in Muslim countries. As a Buddhist boy growing up in Muslim country, I later became a Christian, but I was so blessed with this religious diversity that I grew up in. I came back to the United States, and I grabbed onto all the opportunities this country gave us. I went to Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology. I was the first class to graduate from there. I went to the United States Naval Academy. I have my master's in physics from Naval Postgraduate School, and I earned a couple of patents along the way too, as well as going to Harvard and MIT. But I paid back everything this wonderful country gave me through my service to this nation. And that service included recovering victims from the sea as a deep sea diver. I also went to Pakistan in 2005 after the earthquake to recover the victims of the earthquake there and brought relief to the Kashmir region. I defused bombs in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Somalia to save the lives of men, women, and children. And I came back here, but there's another calling. Because right now, there's an infiltration into our government of this thing called communism, Marxism, and socialism. The same things I ran away from as a child. And those are the enemies of what this republic is. This is what we all ran away from. And that's why I'm here today, because I'm fighting for you. I'm fighting for all Americans, for what we believe in, which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You deserve a representative that understands the struggles you've gone through and what it means to be an American and what it means to have a representative government that's there all the time. I'm saddened to remember my friend Mohammed, whose wife was stuck in Afghanistan after the fall, when the government left everybody behind. His wife was there, and he couldn't get her out, and our representative did not answer his calls. So people like myself had to go there and I got 162 people out. So I'm proud to represent you now as your congressman in the 10th district. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, I would implore you to please hold your applause till the end of the session. I hope I don't have to repeat this again. We would appreciate your cooperation so we can carry on with the program without interruption. Congresswoman Wexton, for your opening statement, please.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Jennifer Wexton, and although I stand before you seeking my third term in the United States House of Representatives, I still consider myself to be an accidental politician. I went to law school because I wanted to help people, and I was very proud to be able to do that in my career as a prosecutor, as an advocate for abused and neglected kids, and even as a judge in our courts in Loudoun County. But I became inspired to get involved in politics when I saw Barack Obama and his message of hope and change in 2008. That was the first time I became involved in politics, and I started really following what was happening down in Richmond. And then we saw in 2012 when the Republicans had a majority in Richmond, what did they use their majorities to do? They used it to pass one of the most restrictive pieces of voter suppression legislation in the country. They repealed one of Virginia's only pieces of gun violence prevention legislation that we had at the time. We went ahead and got a month law. And who can forget the transvaginal ultrasounds that made Virginia a laughingstock nationally, but there was nothing funny about what they were trying to do to women. So when my state senator, Mark Herring, was elected to become Attorney General, I stepped up and I ran for the state senate and I won. I went down there, I didn't see very many people who looked like me, I didn't see very many women at all, I didn't see very many women with school-age children, but I got to work and I worked across the aisle. During my tenure in the state senate, I passed 40 bills, every single one with bipartisan support. And for me, it was a great life to have, it was fantastic being a part-time legislator, but then 2016 happened and Donald Trump was elected President of the United States. When I saw one of his first acts as president was a racist and illegal Muslim ban, I went to Dulles Airport and it warmed my heart to see the support of so many people there. I joined the hundreds of people there seeking to support the folks who wanted to come back to this country and get them assistance through legal aid or whatever else would help. And I realized as I saw Donald Trump continue to attack our institutions that keep us safe, things like the judiciary, things like our intelligence community, things like the rule of law and even facts, I knew I had to step up and run. So I ran for Congress and I won, and I've been in Congress since 2019. And there I've continued my work, working across the aisle to pass good legislation, which I've done. I've passed the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network Act to allow Treasury to enforce domestic terrorism financing, not just international terrorism. I passed the Effort Act to ensure that we got more federal funding for opioid treatment and abuse research. So I'm going to keep doing that when I'm in Congress. I'm very pleased with what we've done so far. We still have so much more to do, though. Reducing inflation and ensuring that we lower costs for Americans is top of mind going forward. And I'll keep listening and I'll keep fighting for our values every single day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And again, a second appeal to your supporters, please refrain from showing your support till the end of the program. Thank you. As I was saying, let's proceed with the program. Let's proceed with the program and okay, I hope you can hear me now. Thank you. My first question is to both of you, and it is a two-part question, and I will address it first to candidate Carl, and then hope that
with all due respect, sir, we're going to call each other either candidates, both of candidates, or congressman and captain of the United States Navy. I think I've heard that title, sir.
If you prefer.
Yes, sir.
Do you believe the 2020 election was free, fair, and untainted? And Joe Biden is the duly elected President of the United States. And do you feel confident about the election process this year?
Sir, Joe Biden is the President of the United States. If you don't believe me, go to your gas pumps or go to grocery stores and that'll tell you. Every American citizen should have confidence in the election process, and we did that in Iraq and Afghanistan with just this, right? A blue finger to prove that everybody voted once. And I don't know why we can't do this in the United States, where we can make sure this American institution is so vital to our country, is not protected. So thank you so much. But again, Joe Biden is president of the United States. Let's not make a mistake about it. I mean, the economy proves it, and the inflation rate proves that too.
Thank you.
I don't think the candidate count answered your question, but I will. Yes, the 2020 election was free and fair, and I absolutely trust the results of it. I am concerned about the elections going forward, though, because so many Republicans and so many people on the right are questioning free and fair and valid elections and trying to suppress the vote. So this is something that we're fighting back against in the Congress. We passed the Electoral Count Act out of the House, and now my understanding is the Senate agrees that they're going to take up a version of it as well. I was there on January 6th, and I saw the people who had been brainwashed into thinking that the election had been stolen from them. And, we cannot let that continue to happen. Democracy is absolutely under attack. And, one of the reasons I ran for Congress in the first place was because I saw democracy hanging by a thread. And so many people don't seem to care about democracy as long as they win and want to win it at all costs. We cannot let that happen. And I know here in Virginia we have many, many stopgaps, and we have many, many things that prevent election fraud. We have barcodes. We have one paper ballots. We have all kinds of things. I'm very pleased that we have early voting in Virginia now, where we went from being one of the most restrictive when it came to early voting to one of the better states in the nation. So I believe that these are things that we need to continue doing, and we shouldn't fight back against them. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your response. I'm going to pass it on now to Ayan for her question.
No.
Okay, that's better now. I would like for us to shift our focus and to education, which has been a big issue. There's been much discussion about Governor Glenn Youngkin's new proposed policy regarding transgender and non-binary students in public schools. The policy would bar students from using names, pronouns, and school facilities that reflect their gender identity without parental permission. Advocates have expressed concern that this could endanger a student's well-being, particularly if they come from unsupportive homes. On the other hand, proponents say the new measure will give parents greater discretion over their child's schooling experience. So candidate Wexton, my question is to you. You've called Youngkin's proposal policy a, quote, vile and disgusting attack on vulnerable trans kids, end quote. How should schools approach keeping students safe while also keeping parents involved? Please be as specific as you possibly can.
Sure. Well, parents can and should be involved in all decisions regarding their children. The fact is, as a guardian ad litem, I have seen plenty of instances where...
Can you please bring the mic closer to you?
The fact is, as a guardian ad litem, I have seen plenty of instances where there are parents who abuse their children, and the children, I heard from kids who came out as trans, who were abused by their parents. So we cannot let that happen. Oftentimes, school is a safe haven for kids. So one of the other concerns I have about Governor Youngkin's plan is that it would not require that teachers use the proper pronouns for kids, even when parents request it. So, those kids could be outed and they could be vilified even further. So this is an extremely vulnerable population, and we see that suicide rates and suicide attempts in that population go way up, but when they are supported and treasured and treated right in their attempts to change their gender and live in accordance with their gender identity, their suicide rates and their issues go down to the same normal as regular kids. So this is something that's really important to me. I have a trans family member. Many people are aware of that, and we have some of my best friends are trans. I think it's very important that we support this community. And I don't think that Governor Youngkin I think he's using these kids as political pawns. I don't think it's about the kids themselves. I don't think it's necessarily about parental rights. In a perfect world, we would see parents who are caring and loving and take care of their kids, but we're not seeing that happen in all instances. So that's something that is very concerning to me. I'll continue to fight for kids every day.
Thank you. Captain Cow, where do you stand on this issue?
Well, ma'am, I think the governor put it right where it belongs to the parents. That right belongs to the parents always, always, always. A school can't even give your kid an aspirin, but you're saying that school can decide what sex your child is. And when we're talking about suicide rates, because of COVID, when parents were screaming to get their kids back in school to learn, especially parents of special needs, where they're missing out on these amazing, caregivers who can give them help. Congress was nowhere to be found. My opponent was nowhere to be found. They didn't answer the door. It belongs to the parents. The parents need to decide all these things. And with suicide rates going up 50% for young women, for young girls in high school, because of COVID, we need to put things back in the hands of parents. I have 5 beautiful children, and I love them to death, and I will do everything for them. I'll do the best thing for them, as will all the parents here. The decision lies with the parents, always, not with the school board, not with the state, not with anybody else, but the parents. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to stay on the issue of education a little bit. The next question is directed to you, Captain Cow. You've spoken out against President Biden's student loan relief plan. Recently, you tweeted, quote, "It's a cheap election year gimmick to fool voters. Not to mention, it does nothing to make college more affordable for families." Can you explain to us how you would make college more affordable for middle-class families in this community?
Absolutely. So my parents, again, I came here as a refugee. My parents tucked away every single penny. My mom was, there's no such thing as mold on bread in my family, right? You just cut around it, eat around it, and why are you using so much butter? And she put a little water and shampoo to make it go a little further. That's what we do to cut corners. That's what we always do. But this loan forgiveness does nothing to fix the price. It just takes care of the symptom right now, but it doesn't take care of the price of education. Education shouldn't cost that much. And when government tries to price fix these things by saying, hey, this is how much you should pay, that's not how it works. We need to let the free market work itself out where there's competition in there, and people will go to a school that's more affordable for them, that will give them a better education. That's how we do it. We let Americans be Americans, and we'll figure it out. We will figure it out as Americans. Government just needs to hold the door so we can thrive as an American nation. But again, it's hard for me to see parents who tuck away money all these years for their children. and then only now to have to pay for someone else's kids. That took jobs, that took degrees that didn't really bring a lot to the table. So we need to relook at the education program and let the free market work itself out. Thank you.
The one thing where Captain Cow and I agree is that the cost of education in the United States is way too high. And I've heard so many horror stories from constituents who paid their loans as agreed and still end up having the principal go up. So I do applaud the Biden administration's attempts to ensure that those who really need this help are getting it, and the people who have Pell Grants are getting an even higher amount. But I also favor things like proactive legislation, like the College Affordability Act, which we passed out of the House of Representatives. Was sponsored by Bobby Scott, a fellow Virginian, the chairman of Ed and the Labor Committee, which would do things like expand the use of Pell Grants, allow them to be used for other things like degree certificates, not full-time, not full or four-year degrees, but also for things like certificates, so people can get the jobs right out without a four-year degree. That's something that's so important and something that we need to do. Also, to ensure that financial aid is available for people. I've also pushed back against the public service loan forgiveness program that went very poorly, and I pushed back against the education department about that and ensure that we got assistance to that as well, so that helps those people who need it. And also allow those who need to refinance their loans to be able to do that at a lower interest rate. And these are all things that the Democratic caucus supports. We didn't get any support from Republicans on that bill as well.
Thank you. Congresswoman Wexton, for you a question about the Afghanistan departure, the precipitate withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan. Captain Cow has termed President Biden the worst commander-in-chief in the U.S. history. I hope that's an accurate characterization. This is primarily because of the manner in which he exited from Afghanistan on a plan that President Trump had agreed to with the Taliban. What is your assessment of the situation in the region, particularly after the U.S.'s withdrawal?
So the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan was anything but our finest hour. It was, in fact, in my opinion, a debacle. It went extremely poorly. President Ghani fled almost immediately, and everybody just gave up. But the U.S. Marines and the U.S. forces there did not. We got out hundreds and thousands of Afghans and brought them to the U.S. for safe haven and for safety. So we need to make sure that we are resettling them safely. I'm very proud that a number of those people came through my district at the National Conference Center, which was a safe haven location for them. I visited there. It was a wonderful facility. They really did a nice job with educating the kids and making sure that people were ready to move on to their final destination. So giving them the support they need down there here is important, but also continuing to evacuate those people that we're able to find and get them out is so important. So seeing those images of people handing their children, their infant children, and their toddler children over the wall to strangers at the military base. In the airport, because they were so desperate, it's horrifying, and we should have done better. It was clearly a failure of intelligence, and we need to do better. We need to make sure that we're taking care of those people. One thing I would just add is that it's not just about evacuation and getting them out of there. It's about taking care of them once they're here. because so many of those people who are here on special immigrant visas or even humanitarian parolees who don't have any path to any sort of legal status or citizenship. I think that we need to do that, and that's something I've been fighting to do in Congress. We're not getting any help from across the aisle, so hopefully we'll get some help from people across the aisle, because as they know, these people helped us when we were in need, and we need to make sure that we help them now that they're here. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Captain Cow.
Thank you, sir. You know, I was there in January 2021, and we had a plan to leave 2,500 special operators behind in order to stabilize the region. We were teaching the Afghan National Defense Security Forces to stand their own 2 feet. In fact, my brother-in-law was the commanding general down in Kandahar, and I would watch at night as checkpoints were overrun, and they would call in, "General, can you please give me help?" And he said, "Hey, you got to fight for yourself." And the next morning we would work to bring them back in to fight back from those positions. But President Biden came in and did nothing. He didn't approve or disapprove that plan, just let it go apart, and it fell apart badly. Go back to 2010 when he was the Vice President of the United States, and he was supposed to negotiate the status force agreement in Iraq and failed to do so. I was there. We had to pull out, and what happened? ISIS came back. Go back to 1975. When in Vietnam, his first vote in the Senate to defund the South Vietnamese army, and then, you know, thank goodness I was able to get out, and that's why I'm here now. But I'm telling you right now that what happened after the evacuation was terrible, because Mohammed, my friend, his wife, an American citizen with a blue passport, could not get her out. He called my opponent's office several times, knocked on the doors, never once, even after now, 18 months, he has not heard anything from her office. And right now, Yusuf, his wife, is stuck in Istanbul and can't get her out. He's called her office and has heard nothing left. You deserve a representative that's there for you. I answer to you. I will always answer to you. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to take us back to education real quickly. Once again, the Fairfax County School Board made changes to the admission criteria at Thomas Jefferson High School in late 2020 in an effort to make the process more fair. For context, Black and Hispanic students have historically represented a tiny portion of the student population at the high school. The new changes made include eliminating the standardized test requirement, raising the minimum GPA, and setting aside seats for the top 1.5% of students at every middle school across the district. Captain Cal, this question is for you. You're a TJ alum. You've penned an op-ed in the Washington Post earlier this year where you called some of the changes, quote, state-sanctioned discrimination guised as equity and diversity. So how should school boards ensure that their student population better represents the community in which these students live and are from?
Thank you so much for that question. That is a wonderful question. Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology. I was the first class to graduate from there. And half my class, you address them as a doctor. That's how awesome they were. And unfortunately, it's not for everybody. When it's called meritocracy. Everybody has a baseline when they come in. The baseline is that you have to have completed algebra and geometry so that we can finish with calculus and differential equations. But the problem is when you pull in just anybody out of a random lottery, which is how they're doing it, not so random actually, because it's more Asian hate than anything. But you know, there's a reason why we have to start at a certain level, because that's how we finish at the other level. And that's why that school is so important to meet those criteria, because now they're playing catch up for the whole time and they cannot catch up. It's very difficult. I mean, if we're talking about diversity and equity, then I want to see a 5'6" basketball player in the NBA, a Vietnamese basketball, you know, it's certain things God made me for, right? And that's what it is. You have to be able to meet certain levels for a higher learning program. Just like all these other schools, any other programs that requires meritocracy, including NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball, there's a certain standard you have to meet. And that's how iron sharpens iron. We push each other up, and that's how my class was so amazing. And one of my classmates, an Indian American, he was a cardiologist for my father. And I'm so glad that Raj was able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Congresswoman Wexton, your
I
response?
think it would be a meritocracy to reserve spots for the top 1.5% of every middle school in the county. Now the issue that we're hearing is that we're not getting enough diversity in the area. And this is something that is concerning because, you know, if you can see it, you can be it, and if you're not seeing students there who look like you, then you're not going to want to stay. And I think that you know, so having greater diversity there is very important. I know that there's a number of alumni associations who feel the same way. There's also, it's not just me, it's Asian Americans Advancing Justice and other groups like that who signed amicus briefs and lawsuits saying that they want the changes. So I feel that, you know, we need to listen to the alumni as well as the people who are there, as well as the educators who are there to get a fair system that lets everybody benefit. And I think it's also important that we have a situation where every single school has opportunities for people to excel. I don't think that that's something that should be an issue that's subject to dispute. So thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Captain Cow. Firearms are now the #1 cause of death for children in the United States. The shooting that killed 21 innocent children and teachers in Uvalde shook the country and prompted the passing of the first major federal gun legislation in decades. A recent study found that in the first year after a non-fatal firearm injury, survivors experienced 40% increase in physical pain, a 50% increase in psychiatric disorders, and an 85% increase in substance use disorders. So the impacts of firearm injuries and deaths are beyond just the children and individuals who are killed, but also the ones who are injured. If elected, what would you do to address the epidemic of gun violence in our communities?
Well, first of all, where did you get that? Is that for the state of, you know, in Virginia, that statistic, or is it
No, it's a
nationwide?
national statistic.
Okay, because usually it's more bludgeoning, but that's fine. Here's the problem where we need to address. It's the mental health issue. It's mental health, and we have to address the mental health programs. I mean, these kids are subject to you know, I mean, just especially in COVID. I mean, they're locked down for months and months and months, and they can't talk to anybody. They can't interact with their friends. And there's many underlying reasons. Could be violent video games, whatever. But we have to get to the root cause of this. But the guns are just a proponent of it, because if it wasn't guns, it would be bludgeoning, it would be stabbing. Look in Japan during the stabbing. That happened because they didn't have guns over there. Still, a crazy man went in there and stabbed 23 children the same day that we had an incident at school up here. So again, we have to address the root cause, not the symptom.
Congresswoman, your response.
The root cause is easy access to guns, period. Violence prevention is one of the main reasons that I ran for office in the first place. I saw Virginia handing out more guns to people in more places to address gun violence, and that's not the answer. We need to make sure that we have things like universal background checks so that people who shouldn't have guns can't get them. They can't just walk into a gun show and buy a gun. I'm pleased that we passed the law that we did, but it didn't go far enough. We couldn't even do anything on assault weapons and age, and prohibiting the sales of them to kids under 21. When kids go out and buy an assault weapon and then kill a bunch of their classmates, that shouldn't happen, and it only seems to happen in the United States of America. We don't have any worse issues with mental health than any other countries. We have this easy access to guns. So I will keep fighting for gun violence prevention as long as I'm in Congress. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to turn it over, and Shuja's going to ask some questions from the live audience.
Just to bring in the live audience, we have a question about assault weapons ban. Congresswoman, you supported H.R. 1808 in 2022, and you voted yes on H.R. 1280, which limited some practices that police can use. This is from the audience. The person suggesting this says that your voting record is limiting the police and limiting law-abiding citizens while not doing anything to stop crime. Why do you vote in this manner?
So my vote on the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is something I'm very proud of. Things like prohibiting chokeholds by police are something that will save lives when people are in police custody. There's no reason to put people in a chokehold. It could kill them. Also, demilitarizing our police. There's no reason for police to have weapons of war on our streets, things like bazookas and things of that nature. There's no reason for them to have things like that. No reason for them to have tanks or military machinery like that. So that's something that I support. It's something that I will keep up with. One of the things that I want to do for our police is making sure that they have more resources for things that they need, which includes things like mental health people that come out and run mental health teams, help them so they're not having to deal with mental health crises all the time, which is what we're seeing happen all the time, where they have to go and accompany people to the ERs and things like that. So I think that there's a lot of things that we can do to improve policing in this nation. I have been very supportive of the police. I have voted to fund them. I voted to fund them and get them more resources. I brought more resources to the Prince William Police Department and the Manassas City Police Department due to my position on appropriations. I'll keep doing that as long as I'm in Congress.
Gal, would you like to respond to that?
Okay, I'm trying to think what we're responding to, because when you're saying, what was it?
The assault weapon.
Yeah, we need to hear a little better. What's the question? Repeat the entire question, please.
The question to Congressman Wexton was that she was supporting the assault weapons ban, but restricting the use of police practices. She was restricting the use of of certain weapons by the police. That was from the audience.
Okay, no, that's great. Okay, first, okay, I'm trying to understand, make sure I understand this question right, because I hear a lot of noise right now. So, the issue with, what was it, I was just thrown off by what would he say, bazookas or something like that. You can't buy some of these things. If you're talking about automatic weapons, that's a class 3 weapon. And so, just like I don't want to comment on gynecology because I don't know anything about it, I do know about guns, okay? So it requires a class 3 license, which is a special kind of license. You can't just go out and buy them. What our law enforcement need in order to tackle some of these dangerous, criminals is AR-15s, which is not an automatic weapon unless you make it an automatic weapon, and that's what we're talking about. So, again, we have to. You're mixing a lot of apples and oranges here. That's why I think I'm kind of confused by your question.
The question was from the audience, so maybe I didn't translate it well enough for you. Can we move on to the next question from the audience? And this is to Captain Cow. It says, you have come out against the PW Digital Gateway. You live in Loudoun County, which receives some $600 million a year from the high-tech data center community. You benefited from lower tax rates, world-class schools, and the thriving economy of a high-tech county for 15 years. Why are you opposed to the $400 million per year for Prince William County?
I'm supporting the citizens of Prince William County. Thank you, because there's only 100 citizens would benefit from that, but the ramifications from the PW Gateway is that it's going to encroach on a lot of our battlefields. But the biggest thing is encroaching on is the watershed in Occoquan, which then affects. So, this is definitely a local issue, and I believe in staying in my own lane when I deal with things. That's a county issue. But when it affects Fort Belvoir, then it becomes my issue at the national level, because Fort Belvoir is the home of the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. It's of Defense Acquisition University, and also a very special operations unit. And as we saw in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the issues there are still happening with a lot of water contamination. People are having a lot of cancer from that. When you look at Hawaii, the issue with the water out there is a problem that there's fuel oil in the water, and it's affecting a lot of families. So as a national defense issue, I have to worry about Fort Belvoir, which, that's a house, a very special unit from JSOC is housed there, and we need to make sure we protect our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and that are stationed there.
Let me just follow up on that, Captain Carr. To what extent is this environmental issue related to the digital gateway?
The digital gateway, that's the watershed that feeds 2 million people in Fairfax County, Loudoun County, and Prince William County, and it affects Fort Belvoir, where all those units are housed. And at the federal level, that's why it affects it, because we are affecting the base right there. Again, people are dying from cancer in Camp Lejeune because of the issues there in the water. People are suffering right now in Hawaii from the jet fuel in the water system, and now we cannot have a strategic base a very important base that's right there in Fort Belvoir be affected by the watershed that's coming from the Occoquan Reservoir, which is getting water fed from from Prince William.
Thank you. Congressman?
Well, I also live in Loudoun County, and I've seen the benefits of data centers, but I've also seen the problems that come with them and the negative externalities that happen as a result. And we've got these high voltage power lines going through communities. There's a question whether that causes health injuries and health hazards for children and for individuals. So it's a really big deal for us. But I understand that they do generate a lot of money. They don't put kids in the school or anything like that. And they also create some high-paying jobs for people in the county. So I understand that it is a local issue. I did oppose the one by the anything going in by the battlefield, because that is something you will never ever get back. I know how the community came together to fight back against Disney years ago. I think the same thing needs to be done for the battlefield and the latest data centers there. But ultimately, it is a political issue, and I'm assuming that they're able to do it in a way that makes good use of the resources that we already have, and does not detrimentally impact the county. I think that I'm going to leave it up to the local authorities to make that decision.
Thank you. I have a third question which has come from the audience, and it's for Congresswoman Wexton. How do you feel that allowing transgender males to participate in female sports, particularly in high school, is empowering young women?
So we're talking about an access issue for trans kids in schools. Most of the kids who play trans sports are not or sports as trans Americans and as trans women do not they're not like the swimmer in the college level. I think that we should have rules about the participation at the college level, and the NCAA has definitely taken on those rules. But I do feel that in the high school sports, it's really a matter of access more than anything else, and being able to participate. And these are kids who are already suffering because they don't fit in and they don't feel that they are being understood. And so for them to be able to participate in sports in a positive way really helps them. We're mostly talking about little kids on the playground just playing soccer and things like that. So I think that there shouldn't be a problem for most parents. I don't think it should be a problem for most participants. And as long as we don't get up to the very competitive levels, I think that we should be very much allowed. When we get up to the very competitive levels, though, I think that we do need to take steps to ensure that there aren't undue advantages that trans women have. Thank you.
Thank you. Captain Carr?
Okay, I'm going to be short, sweet, and to the point, like me. But biological men do not belong in women's prisons, women's shelters, or women's sports. That's all.
We're now going to move on to a different set of questions that came to us in advance from the audience that had registered for this program. And my colleague Ayan Sheikh will pose those questions.
My next question is to you, Congresswoman Wexton, on the subject of building data centers in District 10, something that was talked about just moments ago. But the Northern Virginia Technology Council says Northern Virginia now hosts more data centers than the next 5 largest U.S. markets combined. There's an ongoing battle between preserving Virginia's rural appeal and rezoning land designed for agriculture or residential use to build additional data centers. The Prince William County Board of Supervisors voted last month to allow the controversial Prince William Digital Gateway project to move forward. There's a data center plan to be built near the Manassas National Battlefield Park. And with that, the question comes in from Ken Grimm, who says, is there anything you can do as the congressional district representative for that region to rescind the Prince William County Board of Supervisors approval vote or deny the pending rezoning application?
So what I've done is I've partnered with the National Park Service about their objection to the data centers going in near the battlefield. But then it's very important, something I continue to do. I don't think that we can necessarily rescind it at the federal level, but it is a local issue. So I will continue to fight with our partners about preserving the rural character of the region, and also ensuring that when the data centers do go in, that they go in the right places. I think that they belong in places that are zoned industrial, not zoned agricultural. I'm the co-founder of the Congressional Agritourism Caucus, so I understand how important it is to try and maintain the rural character and maintain that beautiful part of Northern Virginia, which is what causes people to want to live out here. So that's something I'll keep fighting for in Congress, and I'll keep fighting and working with my local partners as well to ensure that when they do make those decisions, that they go in the right place and that they have the right kind of design. Thank you.
Thank you. And Captain Cow, where do you stand on this issue, and how do you think the county or the district should balance keeping that rural appeal, but also building and building?
I hate government overreach just like everybody else. We need to stay in our own lane. And that's why people of Prince William are doing recalls, because Ann Wheeler is being recalled because she has some ties, basically financial ties to sell this. Where I would step in as a federal legislator is the fact that it encroaches on Fort Belvoir. Like I said, there's a strategic part of Fort Belvoir and a lot of people don't know, and so that's what's important for us, and that's we need to protect Fort Belvoir and the reservoir that goes into Fort Belvoir, because again, the Occoquan Reservoir feeds from the digital gateway, which a lot of runoffs, as well as the diesel fuel from the generators that need to work, and it basically over salinates the water, and then so now you have to put desalination in order to get the water out properly. So there's a lot of environmental impacts. So we need to just slow our roll and just do the proper studies first. You can't do, let's pass it first and see what happens. When did we hear that? Obamacare, right? Let's pass it first before we see what's in it. We have to do the due diligence to do all the environmental impact studies first, and then we'll we should allow the Prince William County Board of Supervisors to then change the rezoning of that area.
Thank you. My next advanced question is also for you, Captain Cow. This is from Chris Sentner. He says, or they say, I'm not sure if it's a man or a woman, but Captain Cow, you've asked the Muslim community to vote for you, but in April you called the notorious anti-Muslim propagandist Frank Gaffney a, quote, true American, and he called you a friend on his show. You also said Steve Bannon is a, quote, true patriot for our times, end quote, even though he was the driving force behind Trump's executive order banning immigrants and visa holders from 7 Muslim-majority countries. Captain Cow, please explain to this audience how you can ask for the support of the Muslim community given your public endorsement of anti-Muslim activists.
I spent a lifetime defending the Muslim community. I have fought in Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia. I have diffused bombs to save their lives. I am a friend to Islam. I'm standing here in front of you, asking Islam to stand behind me, and that's all it is. I mean, sometimes your friends we don't agree 100%, right? I mean, I don't agree 100% with my beautiful wife of 23 years until she tells me I need to. But I don't agree with everybody 100%. And just because they're friends doesn't mean that we don't differ on many things. But again, I have grown up in a Muslim country. I have respected Islam. I have fought for Islam. I have bled for Islam. So it has nothing to do with my views on the Muslim community. Thank you.
Would you then, knowing where those friends, whether they're allies or friends, and where they stand with regards to Muslims or their views on Muslims, if they're not favorable, and how do you feel about speaking up or addressing and saying, let's say you say that you support Muslims and Islam, then would you then speak out and be opposed to what they say?
Well, if they say something that I don't agree, I mean, I'll always tell them. My friends know I hold them all accountable, just like they're supposed to hold me accountable, right? I mean, we're held accountable by our communities, our friends. My wife, trust me, keeps me accountable every single day. You know, especially when I say something out of sorts in front of my kids. Trust me, she disciplines me with her eyes. But this is one of those things where you have friends and sometimes you don't agree with your friends or people you work with, but it doesn't mean they're bad people, and you correct them. And, we don't need to do things in the open. You pull aside and go, hey, why are you saying this? But again, like I said, that's what my wife does to me every night when she's like, hey, don't say that in front of kids, don't do this. I'm like, okay. Yes, ma'am. So, yes, we hold each other accountable. That's what friends do to each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Congresswoman Wexton. Would you like?
I have been an advocate for the Muslim community here in Northern Virginia ever since I was first elected to office, and even before that. I serve as an ambassador on behalf of this community. I've invited the imam to come and give the opening prayer in the Virginia State Capitol. It's something that's very important to me. And it was because of the Muslim community in Northern Virginia that I learned about what was going on with the Uyghurs in China and Xinjiang. And so I've become one of their biggest advocates in Congress, and I was very proud to help pass the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. I was one of the top sponsors of that. I'm very proud to get it passed, and that will help push back against China and help prevent the forced labor of Uyghur Muslims. This is something I'll keep doing every single day, and I won't just talk the talk, I'll walk the walk. Thank you.
Thank you. Congresswoman Wexton, this is another question from the audience. In light of the bear stock market and the sluggish economy, do you believe Virginians have been well served by your voting record, and why?
No, yes. Okay. So I have taken drastic measures to ensure that we are lowering costs. I voted for legislation to lower the cost of food and fuel. By cutting down on the consolidation within the meat packing industry, and also ensuring that people have access to more of the ethanol gas, which is more efficient and less costly. So that's something I'll continue doing. It's also very important that we keep in mind that inflation has many causes. Part of it is the energy, the issues with Vladimir Putin and his holding his oil and gas hostage. So I think that, we passed the Inflation Reduction Act out of Congress. I'm very proud of that vote. That will not only reduce the deficit by requiring that the biggest corporations finally pay their fair share in taxes. It will make historic investments in fighting climate change. It will lower energy costs for everybody while still making us less dependent on foreign oil and gas, which will make a big difference in terms of everybody's everyday gas and fuel expense. These are things that we need to do, and also to ensure that we bring costs down. But it's going to be tough sledding for a while, so I'm sorry about that. But it's something that we will continue fighting for. And it's something that there's a lot of causes and a lot of solutions. We haven't got any help from the folks across the aisle, though. And I don't believe that he has any solutions. He's just going to throw stones. Thank you.
Thanks. Captain Cow, if you're elected, how would you help Virginians struggling in the economy?
I think when we sit on the metro, the last thing we say is, I need more government intervention. I wish government can get in and do more things. We need to let Americans be Americans. That's the worst part, is when we try to fix things at the federal level and it just let the free market work itself out. That's the beauty of this country. That's why most of us came to this country, right? So we can be free to do things, not be told by the state what to do, how to regulate prices. That's what we ran away from. That's what we ran away from. This is not America, and so that's the issue right now. And my opponent talked about the Inflation Reduction Act. I mean, even Comrade Bernie said it's not even. It does nothing to reduce the inflation. In fact, it made it worse. And it's just free spending, free money for people, and it doesn't do anything to help our economy. Let Americans be Americans.
Okay, thank you. One more question, again, from the live audience. I'm going to ask everyone to please hold your reactions. It's also related to government, federal government intervention in personal lives. This one says, on your campaign website, it says, government needs to leave us alone, government needs to stay out of our homes, but later on you say, I have dedicated a lifetime to protect all Americans, born or unborn. If elected, it seems you would pursue massive government intrusion into the most personal aspect of our home lives. Isn't this completely contradictory to your saying government needs to leave us alone?
In Vietnam, when you're born, they count that as 1 year old, because they count the year in the womb. And so I have an obligation to protect all American lives. I've done that. I put my life on the line for 30 years, fighting for all American lives. And so that's where we come in. You know, where does life begin? In the Vietnamese culture, it is at conception. That's where we believe life begins, because when you're born, that's why we add that 1 year in the womb, because it's you know, that's why we do what we do. So again, a lot of the demographics in this room, we all believe the same thing, that life begins at conception. Thank you.
Congresswoman.
Please, hold very long. Please. Women should have the right to make their own reproductive decisions, and that includes the right to get an abortion. Right? This is something that a vast majority of Americans favor, and something that is not something that the government should be getting involved in. This is oftentimes the hardest decision a woman will ever make. She needs to make it with her doctor and her partner if she chooses, but the government should not be making that decision for her. I don't think that politicians, you know, my opponent said something about staying in our lane. I don't think that we should be getting involved in that decision and getting between a woman and her doctor when she's making that difficult decision. And if you believe life begins at conception, there goes IVF, there goes you know, much of the contraception. So all these things could go away, and that's something that they're trying to do. Republicans are trying to do in Congress. So that's something that I'm very concerned about. I think that I trust women to make these decisions. I trust them to have their own reproductive autonomy. Thank you.
We're going to move to the final round of questions from the three panel members. And I just want to continue the current conversation by asking you, Congresswoman, inflation and the rights of women to control their own bodies regarding abortion are among the top two issues identified by various national polls. What do you believe are the top two concerns facing voters today in Virginia, and why?
I believe that they are also those same concerns. I think that inflation is top of mind of everyone. I'm very proud that we passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which I already mentioned, which will make a historic investment in combating climate change, but it also, for the first time, will allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices, which will bring drug prices down for people. It also will cap the price of insulin at $35 for seniors, which will make a huge difference in seniors' monthly expenses. It also puts a cap on what they will pay out of pocket in terms of their expenses. This is something that will really help benefit people. It will also reduce the prices across the board and help bring down those inflationary pressures. That's something that's a big deal. But also, again, women's health and women's reproductive choice is something that women are very concerned about, because you know, when you hear from people who want to have things like the Personhood Amendment, where life begins at conception, and then they'll start protecting the fetus or even the zygote more than they'll protect the woman. We end up with situations like we have in Texas, where women are having to cross borders, or where they're having to wait until they're almost in sepsis before they're able to get a DNC, things like that. Because it's not just about abortion; it's about women's full reproductive health. And sometimes women have miscarriages and they need to have something like a DNC, but doctors are reluctant to provide that necessary life-saving health care because they're afraid of these laws, these draconian laws that also do things like prevent women from traveling across state lines to exercise their rights. I believe that we should have a national law protecting women's right to an abortion. And that's something, nobody feels they don't have to get an abortion if they don't want to, but if they want to, and if they feel that that's the best for them and their family, then they should be able to do that and exercise that right.
Thank you. Captain Carl, do you agree that these are the two top issues in Virginia today?
Can you repeat the question again? We went off.
On national polls, inflation and the rights of women, particularly regarding abortion, are ranked constantly as the top two issues. What, in your view, are the top two issues for Virginians today?
We're all hurting today economically because this Inflation Reduction Act does nothing to reduce inflation. In fact, it's, $2 trillion to do what? I mean, to get 87,000 new IRS agents. There's only 287 billionaires in the United States. So who are they investigating? Me? You? Seriously, for that amount of IRS agents, you could actually put a school resource officer in every school in the United States and have 30,000 people left over to protect our streets and to protect our border. That's the most important thing in this district. That's what I hear. It's the economy, the economy, the economy. Those are the top three things.
Thank you. Related to the economy and the struggles of Virginians also coming out of this pandemic are the rising costs of healthcare. So other social services continue to decrease, as one person has mentioned. What will be your strategy for making basic health care more affordable to the general public? Captain Cal.
Again, the free market is, never once do we sat on Metro going, you know what I need? I need more government intervention, right? Who thinks about that? Like, we need government to get more into things. Let the free market work itself out. We need competitiveness. This is why the Obamacare didn't do a lot of things, because we need to allow for good competition out there, and that's why we need to.
So that's what you would recommend as helping Virginians address their healthcare needs and the ones who are struggling to afford healthcare.
Well, we're struggling to afford healthcare because 2 years of being shut down for COVID. That's the big issue. With a lot of Americans out of jobs, and that's the number one thing. We need to let Americans be Americans. Let's go forward and do it. We struggle to build our businesses here. We struggle to make ends meet for our family. Never once did, when I sat on Metro, that I go, you know what I need? More government intervention. The government's there to provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and that's it. Like, just stay out and let Americans be Americans.
Congresswoman.
The free market brought us lifetime caps. It brought us kicking people off their coverage or refusing to cover them for pre-existing conditions. It brought us kicking kids off of their parents' health insurance when they turn 20 or 22. So I disagree that the free market is going to take care of everybody. If you have a disability or some kind of pre-existing condition, you don't want your insurance company to be making these decisions about what they're going to be able to cover and what they're not. But everybody needs to be covered, and that's the best way to make sure that we bring down costs for everyone. So my past vote in the state legislature was voting to expand Medicaid here in Virginia. And I'm very honored and proud to say that now 630,000 Virginians have access to affordable health care who didn't have health care at all last time. It also makes good economic sense because when people become very sick and they don't have health coverage, We go in and get treated, they go to the emergency room, and that's the most expensive and inefficient way to provide health care coverage, provide health care to people. So this is something that helps everybody, and I think that it's something we need to expand and make sure that we provide those basic protections. I will protect Obamacare because I know that there are a number of people who still want to kill it. So thank you very much, and I'll continue to fight in Congress to ensure that we have affordable health care for everyone.
Okay, thank you, Congresswoman. Please hold your applause. Thank you. My next question is also for you, Congresswoman. Many congressional races come down to extensive fundraising, both by the candidate and themselves and by outside groups that support them. The latest fundraising reports show you with a significant lead in raising money. Ms. Wexton, how is money playing a role in your campaign?
So money is unfortunately necessary in order to be able to run a campaign. But, it's important to get your message out and things like that, but we have a very robust field program, and we have lots and lots of volunteers who come out and help us as well. I've long said, and I still believe, that we need comprehensive campaign finance reform in this country. We shouldn't have people being able to spend millions of dollars. And the thing that we also need to deal with is really dark money, because dark money is one of the scariest things. Because there's no requirement that people disclose where they're giving to or who the financial backers of these dark money groups are. They can come in and buy elections and lie about what people believe and put up ads and things like that. So dark money is the big culprit here. So it's very hard to fight back against with decisions like Citizens United, where you say that corporations are people, and that's political speech that they're allowed to engage in. But I favor an amendment to the Constitution which would overturn Citizens United, require that we have comprehensive campaign finance reform in this country.
Thank you. Captain Cow.
Well, I'm so proud that I have over 20,000 donors to me. We're averaging about $33 per person. That shows a grassroots. It means that the American people are behind me. They want to see change. They want to see, just a lot of the energy behind our campaign, and I'm so proud of it. I mean, I'm proud going to the post office every day, getting a sack of, mail, and sometimes it's just $1 saying, "I'm sorry, this is all I can afford," because inflation is so high. I mean, it's all-time high right now. It's just insane, and Americans are hurting. But they believe so much in our campaign that they're sending what they can, and I'm so proud of every single dollar and every single donor from the 20,000 plus donors that we're getting every day. So thank you so much for that question.
Thank you. I have one last question. Starting with you, Captain Cow. The 10th district, with a majority of voters concentrated in the suburbs of Washington, but stretching out into Winchester, is considered a safe or at least heavily leaning district for Democrats. Candidate Wexton won in 2020 over Republican Alicia Andrews, 56.5% to 43.3%. The last Republican elected in the 10th district was Barbara Comstock, who lost to candidate Wexton in 2018, but had won a seat in 2014 and 2016. My question to you is, how do you hope or expect to overcome this heavy leaning district?
The beautiful part, oh, thank you for that question. I love that question because, you know what, the beautiful part of the 10th district is we're so diverse, right? 45% minorities. How awesome is that? 45%. 18% Hispanic, 17% Asian. You know, the Muslim community has been so amazing here. That's how we're going to win because the people are stepping up. They're saying enough. Enough government overreach. Enough telling me what to do. This is the United States of America. I fought to preserve the freedom in this country where the government doesn't come in and tell you what to do. There's 25% immigrants in certain parts. 25%, like myself. I came here with nothing. And this country gave me everything, and I paid back in full with my service to this nation. I'm going to continue to serve you as your next congressman. Thank you.
Thank you. Congresswoman Wexton, how do you think that, why do you think you'd be able to keep that advantage?
Because I have delivered for this district. I have delivered millions of dollars through my position on the appropriations committee to the various parts of the district. Because I also have constituent services, which are second to none. We've returned over $15 million to constituents in this district, and helped with many people in their cases here in this district. It's something where I will continue to build on that record of success, and also be there and listen to my constituents, which I know is something that's very important, and that's where I get a lot of my best ideas for legislation by listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman, and thank you, Captain Cow. We've come to the end of our formal list of questions from us, as well as from the audience and people that were interacting with us on the internet. I must share with you that there was apparently a technical glitch in some of the sound in the early part of the program when you were making your opening statements. So we've decided that we're going to extend your closing statements to 3 minutes each. So, Captain Cow, if you would please make your closing statement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Extremist. Where have you heard this word before? Where have you heard this word before? I fought and served this country. I bled for this country. And I'm being called an extremist. I've served honorably for every American. I know lots of people that served with me didn't agree with my politics, and it's fine. I served them anyways. I served them as a commanding officer. I served them in combat, preserved life, and now I'm being called an extremist. Where have you heard that before? This is how we tear people apart. I deserve to be called American. I've earned that right. We've all earned that right. We've earned that right to be called Americans. Not because we weren't born here. I mean, that's what Ronald Reagan said, right? You can go to France, you go to Germany, you can go to England, but you'll never be French, you'll never be German, and you'll never be British. But anybody can come to the United States and be called an American. I deserve to be called an American.
Ladies and gentlemen, I will fight for every single person here. That's what I've done in the military. I've served every single person that worked with me. Whether they believed in my politics or not, my job was to take care of them, and I will do that in the 10th district. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so proud to come here in this amazing country. I mean, where else can a Vietnamese refugee come here, grow up in West Africa, and come back here and go to one of the top high schools in the country, Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology, go to the United States Naval Academy, get a master's degree in physics at Naval Postgraduate School, go to Harvard, MIT. Where else but America? I deserve to be called American, just like everyone else. And be called something other than American is abhorrent. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to represent every single one of you. Whether you vote for me or not, I will stay out there. I'm not going to hide my office. I'm not going to be absent for 2 years where people don't know where I am. I'm going to be out there every day listening to you. Whether you agree with me or not, I'm going to be there. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Hung Cao, and I'm your next congressman. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, if you could hold your applause, there'll be ample opportunity for that. Congresswoman, your turn.
Thank you very much. I'm calling my opponent extreme because his views are extreme. His opinions are extreme on women's health. His opinions are extreme on gun violence prevention. They are. I'm calling him extreme because that's his views. His views on these issues are very extreme, and they're outside the mainstream of this district. You know, I have delivered for this district. I have delivered millions of dollars in resources to this district. I'll keep doing it. I've delivered with positive legislation that has gone a long way to keep us safer on the streets and also help people, help everybody lower costs for things like food and fuel, help people lower costs for healthcare, and help fight climate change. And I'll keep doing it in Congress, and you know, while he comes to you with platitudes and platitudes, I come to you with policy and plans. I will keep doing that as your member of Congress. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And on behalf of my colleagues, Ayan Sheikh and Tukan Museret, I want to thank the organizers and the candidates for their patience, and of course the audience. Let me now hand over to the organizers. So, Brother Saif Rahman.
Can we get a round of applause for our organizers? First and foremost, we want to thank both of our candidates and their teams for helping us to put this debate on, this discussion. This is what democracy looks like. Yeah. Civil debate, coming together and speaking. Why don't you all give yourselves a round of applause for being here tonight? Before concluding tonight, I would like to invite Raheel Sheikh to give a small word on behalf of our hosts tonight, the Dar al-Noor Islamic Center, Muslim Association of Virginia. But before we ask our candidates to leave, we're going to invite our volunteers up to the stage to take pictures with our candidates, if that's okay. So please don't leave just yet. Everyone, please stay seated for just a few more minutes. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Thank you so much for coming to Darul Noor. I want to start by thanking candidate Captain Cow and candidate Congresswoman Wexton for agreeing to come here and debate. We really appreciate your visit, and we want to commend both of your hard work to serve the community. It means a lot to all of us who are here tonight. On behalf of Darul Noor, I want to thank all the participants who are here and who are also watching online. Thank you so much. If it's your first time at a masjid, I want to let you know, the Holy Scripture says, Innal masajid lillah, which means the mosques are house of God. So today you are guests in house of God. So you're always welcome to come to the mosque and visit. If you need anything, please come and see us. Thank you again for both the candidates and also all the participants for coming to the masjid. And thank you all our wonderful organizers and all the volunteers. Thank you so much. Peace be upon you.
All right, thank you very much. Can I invite the volunteers to come up? If you volunteer, our MOVE volunteers and our mosque volunteers, please come up to or here. I also want to acknowledge some of our elected officials in the House. I want to thank Chair Wheeler for joining us, Chair of the Prince William County Board. Supervisor Kenny Bodie is here. We have some interesting volunteers also. So we have Buddha Bivaraj, who is the Commonwealth's attorney for Loudoun County, with us here today. Delegate Michelle Maldonado is here today. So thank you very much. But if I can invite the volunteers to take pictures with the candidates so that we can have a group picture together. So I'm being told by the mosque to remind everyone that Darul Noor is a 501c3 organization. This is the disclaimer section. 501c3 organization, so it does not endorse political views of one party or the other. We are holding this discussion as a civic discussion.